Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Brave Steps Changemaker Workshop. We are thrilled that you could join us, especially on a sunny summer night when you probably have other choices of things to be doing, but we're glad you're here. My name is Crystal Emmerich, and I'm the founder and executive director of Brave Step. If you are not familiar with Brave Step, we are a nonprofit based here in Charlotte that works to empower everyone who is impacted by sexual violence, survivors, loved ones, allies, friends, coworkers, etc. As a change maker, we know that in order for us to help prevent sexual violence, we also have to be our best self and in the right state of mind to care for ourselves. So our Changemaker programs usually do one of two things. One, it teaches us how to care for ourselves better and or prevent future sexual violence. And tonight is really about how we need to care for ourselves so that we can show up when things are tough and we can be equipped to fight some of the battles that we all are facing. Before we get started, a couple of housekeeping details. Everyone, including myself, will be on mute once Aubrey takes over. If any of this information is alarming, which I don't expect this will be, feel free to take care of yourself. If you need to step away, do some deep breathing, some grounding exercises. First and foremost, care for yourself. As Aubrey is presenting, you may have several questions that pop in your mind. Feel free to put those into the chat, and then hopefully at the end, we'll have plenty of time to answer some of those questions, but at least it gives us a reference point so they don't leave our mind. So let's get started. It is my pleasure to introduce you to Carolina's Biofeedback and Miss Aubrey Berry. So first, Carolina's Biofeedback Clinic specializes in brain health services for individuals looking for integrative and holistic approaches to mental health, mind-body maladies, and overall optimal brain fitness. Oh, doesn't that sound wonderful? I want one of those in my back pocket. Today's session is led by Aubrey Berry, who is a senior board certified biofeedback specialist at Carolina's Biofeedback. And I have known Aubrey for several years, and she has a heart for doing this work. So we are being led by a passion-driven, intelligent, charismatic woman. So thank you, Aubrey, for making time to be here. I will turn it over to you.
Well, thank you. That hopefully I can live up to that ringing endorsement. Very sweet. But yes, hi, welcome everybody. Honestly, thank you so much for being here tonight. As Crystal said, my name is Aubrey, and it really is truly a privilege and an honor to be here with you guys tonight. Like Crystal was saying, we at Carolina's Biofeedback Clinic have been able to partner with Brave Step the last few years to teach their trauma survivors some brain body techniques to help self-regulate, recover from trauma and triggers and things like that. But today I get to speak to you. You guys, the hidden heroes, the support crew, the family members, friends, everybody who stands beside or behind these survivors to help them through. I have to tell you though, when Crystal approached us about speaking to this Changemakers group, I quite literally jumped at the opportunity to do so because this is something I do have a heart for. When I was younger, I started a volunteer group called the Glamour Girls, where we went into the Children's Hospital here in Charlotte, and we sat down and we pampered and spent time with these siblings of the kids with cancer. So this kind of thing where I get to speak to that support system and help you feel remembered and supported and loved, that is something that I just can't wait to do. So anyway, that's a little bit about me. So let's go ahead and dive into what we are going to be talking about today. So here at Carolina's Biofeedback Clinic, in fact, just this year, we opened up our biofeedback techniques to be taught in a group workshop format. So I'm going to talk to you about one of those in particular today. Each of our workshops has a theme, and based on your own personal history and experience, you may actually find that more than one of them applies to you. But today I'm just going to give you a sneak peek into our Calm Body and Quiet Mind workshop. And this workshop is specifically designed to teach biofeedback techniques to, to do what the title says, to calm your body and quiet your mind, basically allowing you to access a mini vacation moment amidst the chaos, which is just really, really great. So let's go ahead and dive in. We're going to start with the basics so I can make sure all of us are on the same foundation here. So who here, you can put it in the chat, who here has actually heard about biofeedback before? Is that anything anybody here is familiar with, have heard before, done before, anything like that? Heard a little. New to me. Awesome, awesome. Yeah, that's honestly very, very common. Biofeedback isn't very much heard of. So luckily for you, I do know what it is, so I'm going to tell you. So biofeedback is the measurement of something physiological in real time that is then fed back to you in some meaningful way that allows you to then make a change for the better. That clear things up for you. I'm going to give you some examples, don't worry. So there are many different kinds of biofeedback. We have ones that measure temperature, where you measure and learn how to increase the temperature of your hands and your feet. We measure skin conductance, so you can actually control your sweat gland activity. We have one that measures muscle activity, so you learn how to target and reduce tension in specific muscle groups. Respiration, where we measure your diaphragm and volume of air intake, and you learn how to control your breath. Heart rate, which we're going to be focusing on today, so I'm going to get to that in a few moments, and brainwave biofeedback, called EEG biofeedback or neurofeedback. It gets its own special name, where you're working with your brain one-on-one, and it learns how to rewire and change. And I could talk about that for like 500 hours, so I am going to just slip on by, and we're going to dive into the biofeedback stuff. So all of these techniques, minus neurofeedback, measures something that the autonomic nervous system controls. These are things that we learned in school, that we don't really have like vocational control over. Like we don't need to sit here and think, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, heart rate, beat, 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 beat. Okay, muscles, I'm about to stand up and move that way. So I need you to prepare in 3, 2, 1 to contract and stabilize. Like we don't have to think about that. We just do, right? That's how we know we can fall asleep at night and we're going to wake up in the morning. So this is where the cool thing about biofeedback comes in, is we learn that there are ways that we can influence these factors, which then impacts the activity, the arousal level of our autonomic nervous system, which then reduces stress, reduces anxiety, improves sleep, improves mood, intervenes and recovers from triggers, reduces pain and our emotional response to pain, and a lot more. Because all of these are things that the autonomic nervous system controls, they mean something, right? When the heart rate increases, the sweat glands go into overdrive, our breathing speeds up. All of these things are sending signals to the brain and then to the rest of the body that something isn't right, that we aren't safe, we might need to run, our temperature drops because blood's being rushed to our centers ready to pump our legs and our arms in case we need to make a quick getaway, things like that. But what if you could harness your breathing, slow its tempo, extend your exhale so that your heart rate slows because it has to, your temperature rises because it has to, and your sweat gland activity drops again because of the biological functions and the way these things are connected in our body. It has to. Then the message to the brain becomes, all's good here, we're fine. Panic stops, anxiety dips, your whole body relaxes. Now, of course, just slowing your breathing isn't always quite enough. We are complex creatures, us humans, and our brains and our bodies are tightly bound. So slowing breathing while letting your mind run a mile a minute isn't quite going to make things work. That's where the power of biofeedback comes in, because while you're working on your breathing or whatever skill you're learning, we are measuring that function at the same time. So you know in real time whether you're practicing correctly and actually helping yourself or not. Okay, is everyone kind of tracking a little bit so far? All right, so let's dive a little bit deeper into the technique that is kind of the main component of our Calm Body, Quiet Mind workshop. It's called HRV Biofeedback. It stands for Heart Rate Variability Biofeedback. And this is where we are measuring the time between your heartbeats to understand what that variability is, because that means something. So we know that our heart rate, it speeds up and slows down throughout the minute that it's measured, right? So that variability of the high point and the low point, what that delta is, it's something that tells like cardiologists what kind of health level your heart is at, what's the stress level like, what's the risk for any kind of cardiac event. So we look for good variability, but often we don't find it. Good variability could be like a 20 to 30 beat difference between the high and the low point. But low variability might be like a 5 to 10 beat difference, and it shows up on the screen. It just kind of squiggles just a little bit versus a nice variability of that high to low point. The low variability, less of a healthy heart, it can indicate, higher stress. It can indicate quite literally a depressed nervous system, which can feel like fatigue, lethargy, low mood, low energy, low motivation, things like that. There are also times when there's a little too much variability and you're going around and then suddenly it just kind of dips up and down real quick within the matter of a second or two, and then goes back and comes up and down. Well, that kind of dysregulation can indicate, it can feel like anxiety. Heart rate suddenly speeding up. It's like a jar to the nervous system there, and it can feel like high nervous energy. And then sometimes it's just all crazy variability. And those I see in my dysautonomia clients, where their nervous system is heavily dysregulated and they have fainting spells and, dizziness and things like that. So we can tell a lot about a person's physiological health by their heart rate variability. So we like to measure that. And then biofeedback people, being biofeedback people, we take that and we go, cool, what can we do to improve it? And that's where the skill comes in. So one of the reasons that we really love using this heart rate variability skill for the Calm Body, Quiet Mind workshop is because of the heart-brain connection. So fun fact, did you know that the heart sends more messages to the brain than the other way around? It does. So you can imagine what it might feel like if in the middle of a high stress situation, maybe a setback with the trauma survivor that you are supporting, kids running around crazy in the family room and you're it. That's all you got. And you've got 12 other things that you're trying to get done. Could be anything, right? And you start to feel your body kind of seize up and the emotions are building and cresting like a wave, but you got to hold it together because you're the only one who can. That might sound familiar. Can you imagine how it would feel if you had a skill that once you started using it, began sending messages of we're calm, we're safe, we have this, over and over to your brain? And what might then happen as the brain sends that signal then to the rest of your body? And you have a calm body and a quiet mind, no matter what's happening around you. You can kind of become the thermostat instead of the thermometer of the room. All right. So yeah, I mean, that sounds great, right? How cool. So how do you do this? How do you learn this technique? So in the workshop, we teach a series of different breathing techniques that get you in tune with your heart, your body, your breath, your mind, so that you can shift to a calmer, brighter, more grateful state of being. And we use the breath because it is very intricately linked to our autonomic nervous system. All right, so bear with me, quick biology refresher lesson. It'll go quick and painless, I promise. The autonomic nervous system is part of our peripheral nervous system, which regulates those involuntary biological things that we were talking about earlier. The autonomic nervous system has two branches to it. The sympathetic nervous system, which is the revver, the engine of our nervous system, speeds up our heart rate, our breathing, things like that. And the parasympathetic side to our nervous system, which is the brakes. You might remember it being called the rest and digest side of the nervous system. And our breath is linked to these two branches. When we breathe in, we activate the sympathetic. When we breathe out, we activate the parasympathetic. So breath can quite literally speed up or slow down your heart rate, depending on how you use it. In fact, it's even tied to our nostrils. So put this in your back pocket because this will be a fun trick to use whenever you need it. So if you plug the left side and just breathe in and out of the right side of your nostril, you are activating the sympathetic nervous system. So this is really helpful for if you were like me this morning and really couldn't get yourself out of bed, to sit there and breathe just like this. It's going to wake you up. Okay, if you need just a little boost, that's going to be great. If you, on the other hand, need to calm or get your digestive system going if you had a really big meal, then plug the right side and breathe a few minutes in and out of the left. If you don't have time to just sit down and pay attention and slow your breathing down, it doesn't matter. You're just activating that parasympathetic side. You can calm yourself down that way. Okay, so fun fact there. So in the workshop, once we have our breathing piece down and you've synchronized your heart rate and your breath rate, and they're both going up and down at the same time, then we bring in our resilience and recovery training. So I'm going to have you guys finish this sentence for me. All right, put it in the chat. Stress is only stress when.
Hey, sorry, I just want to let you know that some of us don't have the chat feature, so we may jump in. I was going to say, stress is only stress when you provide the value of stress, to the word stress.
Okay, I like that. That's a new one. I like that. Okay, cool. Very good. Yeah, if you want to quickly just vocalize that too, whatever stress, whenever stress is stress for you, that's fine.
When you let it. Stress is stress when you let it.
When you let it. Yep.
I said when it causes a negative reaction.
Sure. Yeah. There are no wrong answers, by the way. I just like collecting what people consider to be stress to themselves. Everyone's a little bit different. We'll do a few more. Causes a negative reaction. Yep. Okay, well, we can roll with that too. Those are really great answers, guys. So like I said, there's like no wrong answer. We've been asking our clients this question for, gosh, maybe 10 years. And we always get a little bit of a different response. But if you distill all of what you guys said down, stress is only stress when I can't recover. It's basically what you guys were saying, right? When you let it, when you assign value to it, right? All of those kinds of things. But I mean, think about it. Okay, so let me share my screen here real quick. All right. All right, so we go throughout our day, right? And we have, there we go, little stressors that pop up, right? Can be anything. We got stuck at too many red lights on our way into work and now we're late. Woke up and the kids were already screaming, you name it, right? All right, so we go throughout our day, right? And we have There we go. Little stressors that pop up, right? Can be anything. We got stuck at too many red lights on our way into work and now we're late. Woke up and the kids were already screaming, you name it, right? After a little bit, we're through our ceiling. It just builds and it builds and it builds, right? Bam. Well, now we're anxious, we're stressed, we just, whatever, what have you, that's what we're feeling, right? And we can look at it this way too, where we get stuck in what we call a chronic pain cycle. Now, this could be physical pain, it could be emotional pain, it could be stress, but we get stuck in this vicious cycle where our stress response activates our sympathetic nervous system, which activates some of these unpleasant emotions that we would rather not be feeling in the moment, which then exaggerates and feeds our pain or stress cycle, right? It's this vicious cycle. And I mean, what can be done, right? Like, how many times have you just been like, I make it to the weekend, make it to the weekend. I have vacation coming up in a few weeks. I can just make it to vacation, or maybe just got to get to bed. It could be, I'm not even out of it yet this morning. And I'm just going to need to make it to bed. It's going to be okay, right? Very often we depend on things outside of ourselves to bring down our stress level. But this technique helps you to recover yourself, okay? So this is where we kind of come in here. We have this stress response that occurs, elevates our sympathetic nervous system. Those things happen, by the way, without you being able to do anything about it. It's just a normal biological response. And then we have our unpleasant emotions crop up. Those get to become your little alert to go, ooh, I can do something about this. This is where you get to step in and break that cycle and gain control over whatever you're experiencing. So it looks like this, right? You are going through your morning, you've had a few stressors, and you go, okay, hold on. This is my third red light of the morning. I'm going to be late no matter what. I'm already stopped. Might as well breathe. And you recover. And you go on throughout your day, finding moments, pockets of time where you can just recover. And then look at you. You're ending your day less stressed than how you began it. So that over time, you're starting your day at a lower stress level. You can go throughout your day, recover a little bit, have an event that may have caused you to just boom, blast through that ceiling into panic or anxiety or whatever your normal response might be. And you don't even come close this time, right? And then you just recover, recover, recover. That's what we call resilience. All right. And that is what, there we go. That is what we are training with HRV biofeedback, or at least a part of it. Okay. So that's where that comes in, where you're using your breath, connecting it with your heart and your body to recover and build up resilience in your nervous system. And one of the most impactful ways to our nervous system that helps us recover is by using this technique, not just to calm the body with your breath, but to also shift your emotional state, to choose how you feel. How many of you guys feel like that's even possible? That no matter what's going on, whatever you're feeling, you can just, choose to feel differently. Sometimes. Like maybe it sounds like you're leading me to something. I feel like I'm going to say the wrong thing no matter what, right? So whether you do or you don't, even the people that do, I'm curious, because I know my answer to this. How often do you even live that way, right? Where, you can. Yeah, absolutely. I can choose. Yeah, right, Cookie? We have the power to choose. How often do you? Like, I know for me, hello, I teach this stuff. So obviously I believe that we can. I've seen it work. I practice it myself. I've felt the change, but I don't always do it. How often are we're overrun and ruled by our emotions, right? We eat what we feel like eating. I don't know, I don't feel like that. Let's do this instead, right? We work out when we feel like it. Most of the times, and we hate it while we're in it, and then we like it when we're done. If our morning starts off rough, or we have like a really bad phone call, how often do you go, well, there goes my day. I guess it's just going to be one of those days. Like, don't mess with me. I'm just in a mood, right? How often have those words come out of your mouth? But what if in those moments that we recognize our emotions going downhill, what if we could step in and shift them? Okay. So this is what I like to call our emotional color wheel. All right. So here we have our broad spectrum of emotions. Now we have them all because all of them are appropriate at some points. Anger is warranted in some situations, just as sadness or frustration or fear, just as joy or exhilaration, appreciation or peace are, all of them have their place. I'm talking here about the moments that we get stuck or too easily slide into these depleting emotions on the left-hand side, these emotions that are unpleasant. They actually really do, by the way, deplete us. They take from, they leave us feeling like we've got nothing left to give. They impact to the negative our immune system and wreak havoc on our physiology if we live in them too long. They perpetuate our pain and stress cycles. Whereas on the right-hand side here, these are renewing to our bodies, to our nervous systems, to our minds. They allow and enable us to give more, and it multiplies on itself. They leave us feeling full and able. I mean, that's why we want more of them, right? They're also able to be leveraged to not just feel better, but to reduce our pain, our stress, to interrupt and break that cycle, and to rebuild our immune system. Okay, so, I mean, how do we do this? That sounds great. Why don't we do that? Well, we do that. You learn how to do that in the workshop by stacking on top of the breathing techniques you've been learning with what I like to call emotional state shifting, where you use your breath to replace one emotion with another. It's easiest to start with the this bottom right hand blue, this lower energy emotion where you're breathing serenity and peace and inner balance and stuff. It's easiest to flip there no matter where you might be, where you might find yourself on the left-hand side. And then you kind of breathe into the others. It's a lot easier to do that than trying to switch from down here where you're just really, really just done to joy and exhilaration. Like, woof, no, we need to flip over and then move up, okay? So all of these, no matter what you decide you're wanting to breathe into yourself, all of these changes and shifts are noticeable to you. But I will tell you that it is gratitude that has the most powerful impact on our physiology out of all of these positive emotions, okay? Because gratitude, it's more than just a feeling, right? It's an action, it's a name, it's a decision, a memory. It's a list of small things that snowballs into bigger things, kind of all on its own. It's a perspective, it's a mindset. And because of that, it has that most profound effect on your heart, and through that, your brain and your body. Okay. So, all right, I feel like I've kind of teased you enough. So who wants to actually try this a little bit? We're going to do like a little 5-minute, let me stop my share real quick. We're going to do like a little 5-minute breather here. Okay. I'm going to go get myself a little breath pacer so that I can pull that up. Oh, hold on. There we go. Okay. So we're going to do just a little bit of that. All right, I'm going to get this breath pacer going here. I'm just going to kind of walk you through and give you a little taste of what you can expect. All right, everybody can see the breath pacer screen? Cool beans. Okay, so here we go. So this breath pacer is going to start, and as it expands, you breathe in. As it contracts, you breathe out, okay? So we're going to start on the next exhale. And as it contracts, I invite you to exhale out all of that breath, all that carbon dioxide, and then breathe in fresh, new oxygen with this inhale. Allowing this gentle exchange to begin, really feeling and noticing how the breath moves in and out of your body, tracing its path as it moves in through your nose, down your trachea to your lungs, and then back out again, up through your trachea and out your nose or your mouth. Noticing the heat of the breath as you exhale, and that crisp coolness again as you inhale. Feeling how it fills you almost to bursting and leaves you filled with space as you exhale. And then I'm going to invite you to invite your heart into this process, establishing a new way of communicating with your heart. You can imagine your heart while you breathe. You can feel your pulse on your wrist or beneath your jaw. You can imagine breathing into or through your heart. Feeling how the heart rate begins to increase with your inhale and begins to slow again with your exhale. Everything about biofeedback techniques are of a passive action where you are allowing something to happen rather than making it. It's more of an ask, an allowance. So I want you to begin to notice. Can you imagine feeling it? That as your heart rate begins to fall into this nice, easy rhythm, you feel your whole body relaxing with it. Kind of like your whole body gets a giant exhale. I invite you to lean into that feeling. Let it soak your entire body. Feel that downshift occur. That sense of relaxation. And breathe that in and breathe that out. All right. Okay. So I hope that was meaningful and lovely for you. It was nice for me. I could feel like the whole room come down where I'm at just from my own breathing. So I hope you guys felt the same way, but that's just a little bit of a taste And of course, today you are not connected to an app that can read your heart rate and give you feedback, but with the breathing, you can at least get a sense for what you can expect to find going through a workshop like that. So that is our calm body component of this workshop. And as you learn when you practice, and you may have even felt it just a little bit in those couple minutes that you had, the HRV biofeedback does have a quiet mind effect, but I like to save the main component of that part with this technique that we use called open focus synchrony. And open focus has honestly rapidly become one of my most favorite things to teach at Carolina's Biofeedback Clinic, because it's honestly unlike anything you've ever come across before. It's so versatile and potent for such a simple skill to learn. So what is open focus? I highly doubt any of you guys have heard that before, because it's really not super well known, even though it's been around a while. But put simply, open focus allows you to harness the power of imagination to shift between the different types of attention that we have to reduce anxiety, to improve attention, eliminate pain, and I mean, honestly, as I've learned over the years, apply it to so much more. We should have a little bit of time at the end to do a quick exercise there as well, because honestly, the best way to understand it is to do it. But I'll give you a quick overview before we dive into that. So a little bit more about open focus. I guess it would be most similar to guided imagery work, if you've ever done that, but it's not quite guided imagery. It is a normalizing process, a way of reversing the strains of stress, and allows all systems, honestly, all systems in the body, to return to homeostasis. It allows the entire central nervous system, so from the brain, to move out of our emergency or survival mode and into recovery. And that then flows down through to the autonomic nervous system and the peripheral nervous system to allow balance to return there, which increases blood flow and allows for healing to begin. It allows our thinking to be less rigid, less strategic, and more reasoned and flexible, all those kinds of things. So, well, how do you do it? Well, that's a great question. So this technique teaches you to gently is the key word, gently direct your awareness to and imagine feeling space. I'm not talking about outer space. I'm talking about like space, like the space in this room. And when you do that, the brain, it responds immediately. This has been measured, so I know for that for sure. It drops the whole brain into synchronous alpha. And that is our awake and alert, but relaxed and calm brain state. So it does this by asking you to imagine space. So when we get into the practice here in a few minutes, you'll hear me say things like, can you imagine what it would feel like if you were already successfully experiencing the space between your thumb and your index finger? And asking you to do things like that helps you attain a state of mind that feels like even if you're surrounded by a crowd of people, it feels like you're alone in a field that just extends for miles. It honestly, it kind of feels like a mini vacation, because that's the brain state that our mind reaches naturally when we're on vacation. I'm talking about like a true stress-free vacation, which might be hard for some of you to come by, but it allows you to get to this kind of brain state, which basically you get to go on a vacation at will when you really master this kind of technique. Because when we ask your mind to attend to space, there is quite literally nothing for it to grip onto. There's nothing to objectify or make sense of, no memories of past events to recall, or things in the future to worry over. All of those things are things we use on the daily to conceptualize and make sense of the world. It uses beta brainwaves to do that. But when we attend to space, We give the brain a chance to downshift, which means it gets to take a little vacation. All right, so we are attending to space. We're downshifting between our attentional states. And yes, that is a plural for a reason. Did you know that we have 4 different kinds of attentional states? We have objective, which is one you're going to be familiar with because it's one we are taught to use, where we are observing some object or something, but we aren't emotionally attached to it. So we're able to, evaluate it and kind of control it and take a look that way. We have diffuse attention, which is softer, kind of a more panoramic attentional state. We use this a lot when we drive, where we're aware kind of the 180, it's just diffuse. We have narrow, where we are zeroed in on one thing to the exclusion of all others. That's another one we are very familiar with and are taught to use. Honestly, we use this a lot too when we're trying to avoid feeling something, which only exaggerates it, because by narrowing our focus to avoiding and denying and pushing away that sensation, we're only focusing on it more. It's like this whole thing. So you can use open focus as a way to actually let whatever unpleasant pain, emotion, whatever, to diffuse through and out of you. And that actually gets it gone. More on that later. We also, as our 4th attentional state, have immersed attention. And this is where you're like one with whatever, something like chocolate covered strawberries, right? It just explodes on your tongue and you just live in that moment, right? I love those things. Okay, so we have those 4 attentional states. Now, we don't use just one at a time. Most of the time, we're combining them. Like immersed, diffused attention, we use a lot when we're reading, right? We're immersed. We feel like we can see and hear the characters, but we're still aware of the things around us most of the time, not always, but that's kind of what we do when we read a book. We're also taught in school and reinforced at work to use objective, narrow style combination of attention. This one, it's energetic, it's fast paced, you engage the brain's high frequencies, it's organized by the left side of the brain, it's great, you get things done, it's task oriented. But when you use it all of the time, your brain can't come back down. And overuse of it leads to actual attention deficit issues, anxiety, panic, worry, rigidity. I mean, no wonder we all have issues. This is all we know how to use. Oh my gosh, right? So here's the good news. As you're kind of learning, I hope, through this webinar, but certainly through the workshop, our nervous system is malleable. And chronic symptoms of these increased stressors and things like this, it can be reversed. So to come out of a narrow objective attention state, you move into diffuse, immersed, you use all 4, you come back and you flow in between them. It allows you to become more flexible in shifting your attention. Our physiology begins to then normalize and recover, and all of that. So that's open focus synchrony. It's kind of interesting. So I'm going to lead you through a quick exercise so that this really begins to kind of solidify and make sense to you. So for this one, I am going to ask you to imagine space as it relates to your hands and your fingers. And the reason I'm doing this is because, another fun fact, I think we're up to number 4 now. Our sensory motor strip has devoted more cells to sensations in our thumb and index finger than to our entire back. Our brain is primed to feel things all around our fingers, especially these 2, and our hands. So this is the easiest way to kind of dive into this technique. All right. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and dive in. All right. So if you are in a place where you can do so, I highly encourage you to find a comfortable seating position, to close your eyes. Of course, if we have anyone who's still driving, please do not do that. But if you can, just kind of close your eyes, sit comfortably, and just listen to the sound of my voice and do what you can to follow along, and do what I'm asking. Again, this is still a very passive process. That's why I'm engaging your imagination, because as soon as I say the words, these things happen, okay? So before we begin, I'm going to invite you to take a few deep grounding breaths and allow your body to sink into whatever you are seated upon, feeling how it comes up and supports you, holds you safely and securely. Can you imagine that no effort is required to listen or to imagine what follows? Can you imagine what it would be like to not concentrate, neither focusing upon nor focusing away from listening to the following questions? Can you imagine that your imagination is very subtle and effortless and includes all of your senses, not just visualization? Can you imagine a sense of presence of your thumbs? You can move them around if need be. It's already there. You've just looked away. Let it sense back into your awareness. Can you imagine the region around your thumbs? That space which is air, the sense of space your thumb occupies. And you can just let that feeling in, don't reach out for it. Things are made up of atoms. They are so small that there is a lot of space between the nuclei. And that space is continuous straight through your thumb. Can you imagine your thumbs as clouds of nuclei surrounded by space, in space? Can you imagine the sense of presence of your thumbs while also sensing the space in your thumbs, around your thumbs, and through your thumbs? Can you imagine doing the same thing with your index finger? Can you imagine a sense of space around your finger, the presence of your index finger, and the sense of space your finger occupies? Can you imagine if you were already successfully feeling the presence of both your thumb and your index finger, and the sense of space that permeates the cloud of particles that are your thumb and index finger? Can you imagine moving your thumb and index finger toward each other, paying special attention not only to your thumb and index finger, but also to the space between the tips of your fingers? Imagine paying attention to that space as you draw them toward and away, as that space increases and decreases, and give added attention to that space as they almost touch and separate again. Can you imagine the space of your middle finger? Can you imagine the sense of space around your finger, the presence of your middle finger, and the sense of space your finger occupies? Can you imagine the space of your ring finger? Can you imagine the sense of space around your finger, the presence of your ring finger, and the sense of space your finger occupies? Can you imagine the space of your little finger? Can you imagine the sense of space around your finger, the presence of your little finger, and the sense of space your finger occupies? Is it possible for you to imagine the space of all of your fingers simultaneously, and at the same time, imagine the space between all of your fingers? As you experience space more intimately, it tends to go through things. Space goes to the wall, the ceiling, the world, through the solar system. Space is made of a cloud of nuclei that fills everything, and so goes everywhere. And that feeling of space that is limitless and extends everywhere is just like the feeling of space that you have between your thumb and your index finger. Can you imagine feeling your hands as well as your fingers as clouds of particles floating in space, surrounded by space, and permeated by space? Can you imagine that as you inhale naturally, your breath fills your hands and your fingers, and that as you exhale, and as your breath leaves your body, it leaves this entire region filled with space? And while remaining aware of the space inside this region, is it possible for you also to imagine the space around these regions, around and between your fingers, the space around your hands? And while remaining aware of the boundaries between the space inside and outside these regions, can you imagine the space freely permeating and flowing through these boundaries? And at the same time, feeling the space in your room, the space that permeates the wall, the ceiling, the floor, that goes right through your body, the walls, the ceiling, and the floor. A pervasive sense of space extending now as far as you can imagine and beyond, through the solar system, the universe, the cosmos. And just like you can take a glass of water from one room to another, so too can you take this new sense of space and limitlessness with you from this place and into your daily life. In a few moments, I'm going to welcome you back into this place. I invite you to take a few deep breaths, and when you're ready, you may open your eyes and rejoin us here. Okay. All right, so I know we're getting close to time. I went a little long. Sorry, Crystal. But I hope that was really meaningful to you guys. impactful. You can feel how that can kind of calm your body, calm your mind, quiet your mind. And you can kind of take that with you. There's great applications for it. So, all right, well, that brings me to a close. I want to thank you guys so much for joining me here today. I totally understand if you guys have to bow out. I apologize for running so late. But if any of you would like to stay, I am very happy to answer questions that you might have. So we'll go ahead and open that up now.
And if you have questions for Aubrey, I'm sure we can stay on another minute or so to answer those. But, you know, as we close, I just want to say thank you, everyone. I can't speak for you, but I already feel like I've come down on my anxiety just through this workshop. So can you imagine what you would get if you actually did a longer workshop on calm body, quiet mind? I'm going to order 3 of them. So thank you, Aubrey. You were wonderful.
Thank you.
Super informative, but also extremely relatable. And I love that in a speaker. If tomorrow I will be sending out an email that will have all of Carolina's Biofeedback's information as well as their workshops. So please take a few minutes to check those out, see what might work for you. And then we also just scheduled it today. We are having another Changemaker workshop about building a prevention team. And this is focused on preventing child sexual abuse. So if that is something that is of interest to you, it's September 12th. We'll of course be sending out more information very soon. So any final questions, parting thoughts? Okay. Well, everyone, thank you. Aubrey, thank you
The
so
poll
much.
went
We
away
are indebted. Oh,
before I
go ahead,
finished.
Cookie. I'm sorry.